Hey everybody, Pete A. Turner, executive producer and host of your Break It Down show. Finally, back from vacation and a couple of small family crises. But we're going to get today's show out and get back on the pace. Prison Chronicles is delayed a little bit with the family crisis, but we will have it out soon, and I promise you guys will love it. All right, so from time to time we book shows, and for whatever reason, the person we book doesn't get a chance to show up, and that was one of the cases when we had Egyptian Lover on. It just didn't work out, and COVID and all that stuff, so no hard feelings there. But it is fun to hear Jon and I catch up and talk like in the olden days from the midweek mash is what our first show was called. So what I would do is just go ahead and put this show out. There's a lot of things coming up. So many great guests coming up. I'm super excited about our live on Wednesday with Donnie Most from Happy Days. Anyhow, this is just us catching up, kind of throwing some things around about the show, and I know you'll enjoy it. We'll just keep this real short. A couple of real cool things. One, Save the Brave, savethebrave.org. Go there, donate a little bit of money each month, or put in one big donation. And don't forget, you can also bid on the Save the Brave rifle raffle. You go to blackstonearms.com and you can buy a ticket for $100 and bid on that rifle. We will be giving it away, and you will have an excellent chance of getting it. And if you don't get it, hey, you're donating money to a good cause. The other thing I was going to say is we're going to start having some more comedians on the show as we start to ramp up towards hopefully, fingers crossed, comedy at Bastards in Murrieta. So, or maybe it's Temecula. Either way, Bastards in Southern California is going to start hosting comedy, at least for the charity side of things, but definitely want to start getting the word out about that. So we will have more comedians coming on the show. Other than that, everybody have a great summer. Try to stay cool out there wherever you are. The show is expanding in India. It's going crazy. So probably get some guests from India coming on again soon too. All right, that's me just checking in with you guys. Here comes Jon and Pete.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner. All right, man, we're live. Here's we have our guest image up. I'm going to take this down. Going to Jon and I hanging out. Waiting on Egyptian Lover to pop in here any second.
I'm just happy to hear those words escape. We're waiting on the Egyptian Lover.
We started this show 700 episodes ago.
700 of them.
And if I was to tell you that we were going to get Egyptian Lover way back in the olden times, what would you have said?
I would have said, yes, we are. Because I remember specifically the moment we were at the Berkeley Marina. We had just finished doing something for somebody. Was it in the phase where we were making our living building out office spaces around the Bay Area, and somebody had sent us to IKEA to purchase like 50 desks, and we were going to do a bunch of assemblies and then show up after business hours and build their office out, and there was going to be like Santa Claus showed up.
Yeah.
And while we were doing that work, we would talk about who we wanted to get on the show. And you asked me who my dream guests were. And I have always observed that early hip hop involved infatuations with two places.
Okay.
The Middle East.
Yes.
And space. Do you remember this conversation?
Yes, of course. Oh, I don't remember this conversation, but I remember this concept behind the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember you saying, hey, who should we get on the show? And you've always tried to take the reins off of me and say, dream big, man. Who do we get on the show? And one of the big dreams, dreams that included guys like J.R. Robinson, who we've had.
Right.
And Nathan East, who we've had on the show. And Taylor Dane.
Right.
The Egyptian Lover, because I just wanted to ask that question.
Yeah.
Why Egypt, man? Why Egypt? He was a foundational figure in hip hop and deserves accolades for that, and was a foundational figure in electronic music being employed in hip hop.
Yeah.
I think he gets enough props for that either.
The Egyptian Lover's sound is unique. He talked about it in the 808. I guess I should probably pull that 808 link up for those that want to listen to that show as well.
Yeah.
The sound that he discovered within that, like accidentally discovered that it would do sort of, I guess you would call it a rhythmic feedback of sorts when you plugged everything in, like his tech, his engineer had done. That was a fascinating discovery.
Discovery. Because it wasn't on purpose.
My machine does that. That's what
happens when you know how to throw a hell of a house party.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, that house party is in an arena.
Yeah. Right.
And when your sound guy is your cousin Lou, and he knows how to plug an 1/8-inch plug into an 1/8-inch jack, but he doesn't know about ohms, and he doesn't know about amps, but he can put them together, string them together to make loud noises louder.
Yes.
Sometimes you discover stuff. So, yeah, man, I'm excited to talk to him. You talked with him about the 808 segment, and you've had a conversation with him. I've never had a conversation with him, so I'm pretty jazzed.
Well, good. I'm following up with him right now to make sure everything's all good. All good? Question mark. And this is what happens. I mean, you get these things going, and sometimes it just
that's what happens when you go live.
Yeah, man. You go live, schedules get real tight, and you know, it's COVID time, so
that's true too.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because you've had conversations with him. Are you as aware? Because when his album came out, it had Egypt on it. That album swept through our neighborhood. You know, I grew up in a neighborhood full of boys, and there was linoleum in Kelvin's driveway.
Of course there was. Good job,
we
Kelvin.
about it. Yeah. I mean, we went from somebody got a refrigerator and, I know what to do with that box. And we just spread that box out on the middle of Granada Street so we could breakdance on it. But eventually somebody got a scrap of linoleum and we sprayed Armor All on it to make it slick. And, you know, we were bumping Egypt.
Yes. Of course you were, because that's what you did.
That is what we did. Now, you know, of course, that meant we missed out on The Cure and a lot of other things that were happening. We were probably a little late on a lot of other stuff. Completely missed Susie and the Banshees.
Yeah.
But we were aware of the Egyptian Lover.
Yeah. Well, those things are still around. You can still go explore upstairs at Eric's and all the other things you might have missed, the Smiths and all that kind of thing. I'll tell you where I found it. There's a couple places, but, you know, I'll have to get around. So the biggest place is like right smack dab in the mid 80s. My, you know, I was just old enough. I didn't want to do regular little kid stuff anymore, but I was young enough that I couldn't do much. And so myself and Rob Collins almost every weekend would go to Roller World at least once.
Oh yeah.
In Concord.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect spot for that.
It sure was. And there would be a breakdance session in the middle of you know, the skating time. And so we would all line up in a big, or I guess line up, we would get into a big circle and someone in the middle would go do some kind of breakdance expression. And that's where it was. And so they obviously you play Egypt and all of those songs from that era. Right. Because it was like you were forced to cross genres because you had breakdancers and you had couples that wanted REO Speedwagon songs. It was just a time and a place where they played a lot of different music.
Well, it was a time and a place where you could roller skate. Really what it was a place for teens to congregate.
Yeah.
And within short driving distance, you had everybody. So when you have a singular place for teens to congregate, You're going to get all of them, no matter what they're into.
Yeah.
And that's what that place got, to the benefit of everybody.
Well, and the DJ also was sort of obliged to play some of your songs too. So when someone wanted to hear "Rock Me Like a Hurricane,"
Yeah.
you kind of had to play it a little bit, you know. And then they'd spin a couple of songs, then they'd play Houdini, you know. So the mix was pretty diverse at those places, but it was fun. You know, you went around, you skated around in a big circle, and then did a little breakdancing. It was a good time.
But here's why DJs make great record producers. You know, why DJs like Dr. Dre, his DJ experience is really what informs his ability to be a hit maker. And the reason why is because, in contrast to the musicians, and of course, growing up as a drummer, there's always a chip on the shoulder of a musician towards the DJ because, well, he's just spinning records.
Yeah.
And until I became a DJ, I didn't realize that there's different stakes. Because what happens when you're a musician is that you learn songs and hopefully you get really good at them so your friends come and see you play. And they'll tolerate whatever you're playing because you've spent the time to get good at playing it and they're watching your performance. The difference when you're a DJ is that DJ's got 10,000 songs behind him and you know it. So he's not obligated to learn how to play any of those songs, which means that at any moment in the party, he better be playing the perfect song.
Yeah.
Because there's no tolerance for, well, I'll just wait until he is done playing this one. Nope. It's too much at stake for that. Because I know you got 10,000 of them behind you, and if the one you got on sucks, you need to drop it right now, and you need to put the needle on something good.
Yeah.
So it's different in that the stakes are ratcheted up a little bit. Now, take it to the environment where Dr. Dre came up and where the Egyptian Lover came up. Gangland, Los Angeles. If you're not playing the right song right now, a riot could break out. And we're talking about loss of life. Yeah. So the pressure is on you to drive that party and to navigate the landscape of songs. And you got to keep your backup songs when you know people are starting to act up. Mm-hmm. Boy, I better go to something tried and true.
Yeah.
And for him, I know his list was when the crowd starts to act up and you might be losing them, you better have Flashlight at the ready. You better have Atomic Dog at the ready. You better have More Bounce to the Ounce at the ready. You know, these are staple songs that Shake Your Pants by Cameo. You just got to have them ready, and you almost got to save them because you can mess around and play some more obscure Kool and the Gang song and take a chance on that. And when you're about to lose the crowd, man, you need a can't fail to bring them back. And so you reach into your pile of can't fails, and you can't lead with those because, then you've blown your wad.
Yeah.
And, so for guys like that, when the stakes were high and where they were sort of pivotal figures in the reshaping of what parties looked like, which is certainly the category that Egyptian Lover falls into, because they started out spinning house parties, and we love house parties.
Yeah.
But those house parties became so big that they had to move into rec centers. And then the rec centers weren't big enough because word got out. And we got married. Did you ever break dance to his music on the dance floor at school? Yes, Mary. Yes, yes, yes. So, how could we not? Because he mixed so fast and scratched so sweet. Not another DJ on earth who could compete. So that was really what it meant to us. I mean, you can really count on those foundational guys to drop just the mad beats. And it wasn't until they found those mad beats that they recorded them. So when Egypt came out, he knew it would work because he saw it work in front of 10,000 people. And for a gathering to be at a place that could house 10,000 teenagers,
Yeah.
and 10,000 of them to show up. We're not talking about a concert. We're not talking about Earth, Wind, and Fire's in town. We're not talking about Prince showed up. We're talking about the Egyptian Lover, who is not a national act. He's not on Soul Train. He's not on tour. He's in LA where he's from. And he's going to attract 10,000 people? That's a great big deal. So, you know, they went through a lot to get to where they were going. And by the time those songs came out, there was a little bit of mystery because hip hop was new. But there wasn't mystery in the fact that those songs were what were working with people.
There's a couple of people that made the 808 what it was. And I'm not talking about Don Lewis, but I'm not referencing Don Lewis. By the way, Don Lewis is the episode for tomorrow. If you know who Don Lewis is, you're about to find out.
Yeah.
But let's see, folks or groups like African Bambaataa, obviously Egyptian Lover. There are a lot of people that early on got that 808 going.
Mm-hmm.
The Beastie Boys, Rick Rubin in general wasn't afraid to use that thing. They figured out something different. Who else comes to mind from that mid 80s when the 808 became something?
Oh man. That's a stumper, and it shouldn't be. But let's see.
Oh, I got to cherry pick all the first things that came to my mind. So,
yeah. Twilight 22. Remember Twilight 22?
I do not.
They had a song called Electric Kingdom.
Okay.
And that was a roller rink staple as well. And the early drum machine bands, you know, like Kraftwerk and stuff, who were using the instrument to be creative. I mean, the purpose of those machines, like the Rhythm Ace, which was really the first mainstream, if you want to call it mainstream, drum machine, was to replace having to hire a union guy.
Right.
You know, it gave the opportunity for an organ player or a keyboard player to just have some rhythm accompaniment. It didn't necessarily feed creativity. But what happens when you put a tool like that in the hands of a bunch of kids who don't have music in school? They don't have access to orchestra instruments. They don't have access to practice facilities where they can learn the piano and get private instruction and all that, stringed instruments, and all of that stuff's out of reach. But what is within reach sometimes is an old machine that someone throws away. And, you know, like we went over in the 808 episode, those machines were, the TR-808 Rhythm Composer specifically was a commercial failure when it first came out.
Yeah.
And because it failed, it ended up in pawn shops. And you ended up with a machine that retailed for $1,800. It retailed for $1,800 in 1981.
Yeah.
You know what else retailed for $1,800? The Toyota Corolla.
A car. Yeah,
exactly, but it wasn't much more expensive than that.
Yeah.
And now you can find it in a pawn shop for $100, now being 1981, because it was a commercial failure. And when that happened, you had kids get their hands on them. And when kids got their hands on tools, necessity being the mother of invention, well, it was a kid who didn't have all kinds of stuff. He had to work with what he had.
Yeah.
And just like Egyptian Lover, he took that thing home and he plugged it in and he put on Planet Rock. And at a party in the middle of a bunch of teenage crowds, he would drop out Planet Rock and drop in his drum machine with a beat that he programmed that was similar enough that he could mix with it, but that blew everybody's minds because they thought that he was just mixing break beats. And it turned out that he was composing those rhythms. And they may have been relatively simple, just backbeat funk grooves.
Right.
But they got the party going. And they got the party going in a way that was unique and that was uniquely his. So
the other thing about the 808 in general, and especially our man Egyptian Lover, was he knew enough to not get too fancy. You know, he just got that groove that nobody had heard before. That fat drum sound with the decay and all of those things that the 808 is known for. And he would just
It's like
grab.
a groove that nobody had heard before, but they heard it in their imagination.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and he was sort of speaking to the party.
And then you, as a DJ, you look at your crowd, or the drummer, you look at the crowd, and you get to see what they're doing, right? And you know, and play with that. And he just leans into that DJ mic and just goes, yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
That's his lyrics. A lot of the time, it's just super simple stuff, you know, and it could just be one word over and over again. Because he, you know, and he was worried the first time he was really doing this thing live. He's like, are they not going to like this because it's a drum machine? But they did like it. And then, you know, the party is going. And so he does just, as now transitioning in from just a DJ to a performer, to a producer, this just needs everybody to know that it's okay. So I'm just going to say yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. Genius.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it was a natural progression. He didn't decide to become a producer. The party made him a DJ. The party made him a creator. And the party made him a music producer. Yeah. Great story.
For the rest of his life.
Yep.
For the rest of his life. And then, you know, he talked about in that episode how, you know, that's when he broke the 808 in LA.
Yeah.
That's not a small thing.
No. It's not a small thing when we look back on it in history, but it's almost like, you know, Washington saying that's when we crossed the Delaware. You know, it was just what needed to be done at the time.
Yeah.
It turned out to be historic.
Yeah. I mean, how many things?
He did all of this stuff because he had been the Egyptian lover, but before he dropped that record, he was in Uncle Jam's army.
Uh-huh.
And Uncle Jam's army included Ice-T, DJ Pooh, DJ Bobcat, and was started by Gid and Tony Martin, and their first DJ was Roger Clayton. These guys everybody knows who Ice-T is.
Yeah.
DJ Pooh went on to not only produce a lot of records we know and love, Ice Cube's Death Certificate, for instance, but he wrote Friday.
That's
we're talking about
that's pretty
people
good.
who learned to control the party and took that experience and translated it into different media. You know, records, that was sort of the next step. But for DJ Pooh to say, I am so in tune with what people love, I'm going to make people laugh for generations by writing this movie about this experience. And man, you want to just talk about resourcefulness. That's what it really comes down to. Is Uncle Jam's army was filled with guys who just were resourceful. And really, when it came to the king of Uncle Jam's army, it was the Egyptian lover.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, where is he?
Come on. I don't know. I had a message from him a little while ago, but I have not heard from him. So I'm not sure if something came up. And, you know, shit comes up sometimes. So,
yep.
We can do this for a few more minutes, you know.
Nile's overflowing.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows what it is?
The rushing Nile. He has a house on the Nile. So,
yeah. There's a lot of stuff on Egyptian Lover out there. If you do a Bing search for video and you type in Egyptian Lover interview, you'll find all kinds of things. And he talks about a lot of his background stuff. And ideally, we'll cover some different areas because even if it doesn't work out tonight, we'll still have him on. It's not gonna not happen. It's just you know, something might have come up.
No, it's a little premature to say he's our homeboy, but we are acquainted. He knows where we're coming from, and it's not premature for me to say he's my homeboy because, man, I love his work. I love his contribution, and I'll just step out and say I'll confidently say I probably know more about his contribution than almost anybody he's ever talked to.
Wow, that's pretty bold. It
is bold, but the people who really know about his contribution were the people who were in Los Angeles and none of them have the Break It Down show.
Aha. That's
Since we are the platform, what he's going to encounter when he does talk to us. And this is, I mean, our audience knows it. Our listeners who have been with us for a while know it. What we do when we bring somebody on the show is we get them.
Yeah.
And when we know we got them is when they say, how'd you know about that?
Yeah.
Or, man, nobody asked me about that.
Yeah.
And I just can't wait to do it to him, because we're gonna go back and we're gonna go deep. And we try not to ask stupid questions. Does it bug you when you watch somebody's show and they ask a very elementary question to somebody and you go, now you're just wasting his time?
It depends
You
on
ever
the
have that
show
feeling?
and its purpose. Like
Yeah.
Good Morning America, I didn't think Matt Lauer was a particularly good or bad interviewer, because there's really no room for him to be either of those things. His job was just to kind of get those 7 minutes out, and there's a pattern, there's a formula. And then it was on us to find out. It's one of the reasons why podcasts are so successful is that.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here, and if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
And then it was on us to find out. It's one of the reasons why podcasts are so successful is that we don't have to ask those questions. He had to. So it used to bug me, but now that I've been studying what interviewing is and looking at it, I understand that there's different things and timing and questions, and so it doesn't bug me anymore. But it used to.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, though. I mean, there is function for everything. And the thing that makes podcasts great is you get to go deep.
Yeah. See, I'm trying to think of, both of us independently found that song before we got Rick Marotta, when he's just playing the fuck out of everything in that song. I can't even think of what song it is right now. It's James Taylor's song, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
The hour that the morning comes.
yes, tell that story.
Oh, yeah. That's great, man. That song was on a very low-selling James Taylor album called Daddy Loves His Work, I think, something like that. But the song is called The Hour That the Morning Comes, and it features the drums. And it features Rick Marotta at his Rick Marotta best. Now, for our listeners who are not familiar with his work, he played drums on the Steely Dan song Peg, and he's played drums on a lot of things that you've heard from a lot of artists, James Taylor, Carly Simon, folks like that. And the thing that he's known for is the way that he creates tension in the groove. And to oversimplify what he does, he drives the groove forward with his bass drum, and he pulls the groove back with his snare drum. And that creates just such a funky, deep feel that he's really known for. And The Hour That the Morning Comes featured drum breaks, gave him plenty of room to play fills, and he played a pretty busy beat in his Rick Marotta style. And it's just a classic piece that I really love. And the first time we had him on the show, we were at his house. I just asked him about that.
Well, I think
I said,
you were at his house. I had something else incredible to go do. It's one of those days where we were double booked.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. It was, I was there with Mark Valley.
Aha.
So Mark and I were there, and we were talking about the standard stuff. Now, Rick Marotta, after a brilliant career as a session drummer, went on to score for television. And he had a TV show, a little-known TV show called Everybody Loves Raymond that he did the music for, made a pretty good living on. So we were talking about that stuff, just the broad strokes. And I said, I want to ask you about something just kind of selfishly, because nobody cares about this, but I care about this. I want to talk about Hour That the Morning Comes. And his reaction to it was, well, now, what in the how in the hell did you hear about that?
Yeah.
And it was on the James Taylor album called Daddy Loves His Work that I think about 27 people bought. And I said, well, one of those 27 people sold it to Rasputin Records and I picked it up used. And that is one of my very favorite beats ever. I put it in the class of drum compositions alongside 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. And he and Steve Gadd are very dear friends. So for me to put it in that category, I think he got a kick out of that. But he really got a kick out of the fact that anybody knew what the fuck Hour That the Morning Comes was, because it's a piece of genius. I'm happy to say that, Rick Marotta, we're very well acquainted. I call him on his birthday. I call him a couple times a year. He calls me from time to time. And just to every once in a while, look down at my ringing phone and have it be just Rick Marotta.
Yeah.
To me, just warms my heart because he's one of my musical heroes. And when you meet your heroes and they disappoint you, nothing could be further from what happened when I met Rick Marotta. I met Rick Marotta and he made me even more of a fan. I fell in love with him even more than I already loved him. And found out that in addition to being a wonderful drummer, he's also a wonderful human being. I think we're going to find that about Egyptian Lover as well.
Yeah. And I've sent him one more message. We'll just go a few more minutes here, and if it doesn't work out this time, we'll just set it up again and figure it out. But you're right. Getting and sitting down with Rick is neat, and it is one of the things that makes our shows stand out is when we have the person stand up, and there's quite often three outcomes. One is the person just becomes instant friends with us. Yeah. And that happens all the time. Like that's a normal thing. When we first started, our goal was to have them stand up and say, that's one of the best interviews I've ever done. And that happens all the time. Uh-huh. And then the other thing is just to have them look at you for that 1 second and go, that is such a good question, and have it really be that thing. And that happens every single show. Every single show someone says it. And you and Scott and I kind of play around with who gets that first or who gets the most of those. But it really is that moment where you get that person. I mean, this is what the audience gets from that is that person's like, I've been interviewed 1,000 times. That is such a great question. And then they dig in. And now once they say that, here's the pro tip for interviewing. Once they say that, you spend time in that thing and you explore it with them because there's a lot of richness there. You don't just go, what color shoes do you like? Like you stay there and you ask those extra questions because now you've got their attention, and that's what the audience deserves.
That's what the audience deserves. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. It's always about what the audience deserves. But it is also about the exploration. I try to think about what the audience deserves, but more often, we get guests who fascinate us. So it's easy to just be lost in your selfish exploration of whatever it is you want from that guest. It's real easy to do that.
Yeah.
In fact, what's really fun is when they say, man, that's a great question. And you get to think to yourself, oh, sweet. I've been holding one back. Like I haven't dropped Atomic Dog yet.
Yeah.
And then when they go crazy because you have played one of the other go-to songs, like, oh, I played Jungle Boogie. Oh, I can't believe you played Jungle Boogie. Oh, just wait.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting on Atomic Dog. I haven't even dropped that yet.
Yeah.
And so that's also a lot of fun.
Since we're talking about DJs from LA, we should definitely mention our good friend DJ Severe. I love DJ Severe. He is the Dodgers DJ for the stadium. And they're getting him a new sound system, which as soon as they start playing baseball, he'll get to play with. But he
also, everybody, if you're not in touch with DJ Severe, look him up on Facebook. He does Facebook Live events all the time where he spins and he'll do like a New Jack set and he'll just spin New Jack for 2 hours, or he'll do a 70s funk set, or he'll do a horn section set, and he'll just drop one after another and after another. And his favorite thing, he has a similar feeling that to the one that we just talked about, was it's great when a DJ plays that song that you wanted him to play.
Uh-huh.
It's even better when the DJ plays the song that you didn't even know you wanted him to play.
Yeah.
And that's what he does time after time. So check out his Facebook Live events. He's DJ Severe.
He in the day-to-day of his job, he only has so much room to work with, and he's got to be careful in case, someone, even if someone thinks they heard a bad word, even though they didn't hear it, because he's a pro, he's got to be careful when he makes his choices. But he often gets to play in sequence, because this is how the game works, is every time Kenley Jansen comes in to close out a game, he plays California Love, because that's Kenley's song. So that's already one of those ones you can always play and people will run to the dance floor. And then, because this is how music works, then he plays I Love LA when the game is over and the Dodgers win. And it's funny because you would never put those two songs together, but you think about how those songs work together. It's just fantastic because everybody's having a party. You wouldn't think that Randy Newman and Tupac would go so well together, but I'll be damned. They sure do. And then he's got whatever he wants after Randy Newman.
Those songs have have both aged very beautifully too.
Yeah.
Because of their celebratory nature.
Yes.
And because the people who listened to California Love when it was a song for gangsters have aged out of gangsterism.
Yeah.
And now those who have made it to some level of business success get to buy tickets to Dodgers games. And now they're hearing it as 50-year-old people. So,
and you don't get to be the song that closes out a Dodger win by being a crap song. Like when they started that, back when in the 80s when Oakland would play Cool and still to this day plays Celebration. You get that because whoever was the DJ at that time was so good at picking the right song at the right time, you ain't allowed to play anything else. Because it's already the perfect choice,
Well, if you know what's good for you.
If you know what's good for you. Because everybody will notice if you don't play it now at this point.
Yeah. I'll also shout out my nephew, Raj Smooth from New Orleans, who we need to hurry up and get. And it's my fault we haven't got him yet, but he is also a brilliant DJ. He's the DJ at the Superdome, where the Saints play. And he does Facebook Live events too. He did one the other night. He does mimosas in your sofa on Sunday mornings, and man, brilliant Sunday morning sets. So if you are listening to Pandora or what other things are out there, Amazon Music, whatever it is, do yourself a favor and check out a Facebook Live of a DJ and get somebody's professionally curated, not an algorithm, a professional curation from a master of the party, and you'll have a great time.
I like it. Well, listen, this has been good. I've not heard from Egypt yet, so I'll stay on it. I'll get a hold of him, and we'll make it happen. But if nothing else, I appreciate you guys checking us out for a little bit. What do you want to say in closing, John? You want to ask me anything? You want to do anything else?
No, I think let's just we'll get him for another time. I'm sure he's not big timing us. I'm sure something came up. So I don't know. What do you think, man? Where do you go from Egyptian Lover though? Because I have a feeling when he understands how much we get what his contribution is, we'll be able to reach around the circle that he keeps and figure out who else we want to get. Is there anybody else in
Houdini?
the Egyptian Lover? Oh. Yeah.
I mean, come on, right? Like one leads to the other. Those guys, this is not fair to those guys, but as a kid, it was like, I don't know which one's which. I just like it. I like it. That's all I knew, but now I know better. And
here's how my wife is more hip hop than I am. She went to that tour in, I believe, 1985. It was Run DMC, the Beastie Boys and Houdini.
Wow. Yeah.
And I didn't see that show. She went to that show. And she said that Houdini ran away with the show.
Huh.
And if you're capable of running away with the show when the other two acts are Run DMC and the Beastie Boys, you got something.
That show, is that 85? Is that when that was?
I think so.
Yeah, because that's
Feels
right
like-
when the Beastie Boys, that's Licensed to Ill's earliest days, really, you know?
Yeah.
So they weren't really a good act at that point. They really didn't have much to say or to do, you know?
You know, that's true. But still, that album just banged so
Oh my
hard
God.
that all they had to do was go out and play the record.
Seriously. Like, there are very few albums that are that strong, but that one,
Yep.
that one was 45
It
minutes.
established a lot of careers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah. How about Rick Rubin? Let's just go ahead and get Rick Rubin. I'll tee that up.
sure.
See what I can do. That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I'm gonna end the broadcast. Thanks to everybody who listens. Sometimes John and I like to hang out, and I appreciate you guys all appreciating that with us. And,
Yeah, well, we could do this all day. So at some point, we have to because, things come up with our guests. And now that we're going live,
Yep.
I mean, this has happened, a dozen times, and we just reschedule with the guest. And then all our audience knows is that the podcast went up and that it happened.
Yep.
But they don't see that in 700 episodes, a dozen times, it didn't happen the first time and it had to happen again.
yeah,
And this time it's happening live. So the good thing is when our guest has something come up, we at least have something to talk about.
and we always have a backup. So here's the backup. Today's released episode is episode 700 with Moms and Pops. Pops Escovedo, Pete Escovedo, Sheila E.'s dad, Peter Michael's dad. And John did that show. So that show is up. So there's plenty more fresh stuff out there. So you can go get that.
Yeah, go listen to that
fresh.
show, everybody.
Yeah, fresh Break
It's
It
a
Down
great
show.
show with a percussion legend.
Yeah. The word legend, we throw it around quite a bit because we get legends like Stuart Copeland, like
Yeah.
Don Fry. There's
Yeah.
some real, like these guys are legends where, Don Fry has a knockout reel.
Yes. If anything qualifies you, maybe it doesn't qualify you as a legend, but it sure does shut up whoever questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't think you're a I knock fools out. Okay, never
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. We've had a couple of guys whose nickname can still be Champ, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
And
Tony the Tiger Lopez.
Fight of the
Remember
Year
Tony the
twice.
Tiger Lopez? One of the things he said was, I'm still pretty fast.
I'm still pretty fast, yeah. But he won Fight of the Year twice. I mean,
Yeah.
out of all the boxing matches that year,
Yeah. Yep.
2 different times.
And those years were populated by other fighters like Tommy Hearns,
Yeah.
Sugar Ray Leonard,
Yes.
and Marvin Hagler.
Uh-huh.
And when you win Fight of the Year, that's saying something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he did it twice.
He did it twice. So when we say that Pops is a legend, we've got the bar exactly where it needs to be. Way the fuck up there.
Yeah.
And man, I'll tell you what. That's such a good show. I love hearing those guys' story.
What else you gotta be but a founding member of Santana?
Yeah. Well, we'll do that too.
And he's done a jillion things since then.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Thanks, everyone.